Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Another deadly day in the backcountry.
This year in particular, I have been avoiding this exact area where the incident happened.
We're seeing incident after incident.
An already treacherous avalanche season claims more lives and brings new warnings. Climate activists calling out the city of Vancouver.
You know, we're supposed to see balance and equity reflected in the decisions that we make.
We can't tell staff how to do their job.
And what they call a missed opportunity for climate accountability. Welcoming a new life in Bella Bella.
I'm really just putting this story out to the world because I want it to be a good one.
A Hadzik family prepares for the first birth in the remote community in 2 decades.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Anita is on assignment tonight. It's been another deadly week in Avalanche country. 2 people have died near Golden after being fully buried under snow, bringing the total number of avalanche deaths in this province this year to 9. Our Lindsay Duncombe looks at the dangerous conditions behind the growing number of fatalities.
Conditions in BC's backcountry haven't been this dangerous in 2 decades. The latest deadly avalanche happened near this slope, known as Terminator 2.5, just out of bounds of Kicking Horse Resort. 2 people died, buried in a wall of snow as wide as a football field.
If you're caught in a really big one, I mean, it's going to feel like you're like in a washing machine. You know, it's going to be like you lose perception of like where is up and down.
Michelle Ghoussoub survived avalanches before. He knows that backcountry well.
This year in particular, I have been avoiding this exact area where the incident happened. We're talking about like really big avalanche paths, like very steep terrain.
The avalanche happened here near the Alberta border. So far, there have been 5 fatal slides on BC mountains this year. 9 people killed. Just last weekend, 2 skiers died here on Potato Peak. Here's why it's so dangerous. Back in the late fall, it was very cold and snowfall was light, creating a layer of sugary, loose snow. When heavy snow piles on top, the whole snowpack becomes unstable.
We're seeing incident after incident released on these deep, lower layers. They're very hard for people to properly assess. And when we do get avalanches, they're extremely large.
These kind of conditions won't go away until the spring melt. As tempting as those steep slopes may be, even experienced people in the backcountry are warned to be especially careful and consider staying in bounds. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, this weekend marks 5 years since the disappearance of 20-year-old Ryan Shtuka. He vanished from the ski resort where he worked near Kamloops, and his family is keeping his legacy alive by helping others going through loss.
It has gone beyond the scope of just him personally, that our purpose is to help other families navigating through this loss, and that through his name, I think we have done some good things.
His parents, who live in Alberta, are at the resort this weekend and took part in today's memorial Run for Ryan. He was last seen leaving a house party at Sun Peaks on February 17th in 2018. Police and volunteers have extensively searched for him. Heather Shtuka will be signing copies of her book Missing from Me in Kamloops tomorrow and Sunday in Sun Peaks. Well, Vancouver City Council has voted against implementing recommendations made through the Climate Justice Charter. That's a guide for city staff when making climate-related decisions. As Janella Hamilton reports, those who worked hundreds of hours to create the charter believe council is backing down on its commitments.
For more than 2 years, Navdeep China and 15 other community members worked together to create Vancouver's Climate Justice Charter.
It was very emotional work because you were sharing something that is very personal to you.
A document filled with lived experiences on how climate change is impacting marginalized communities and biodiversity.
We live in a city where we see on a daily basis the impact on marginalized people. The charter said, let's do things in an equitable way, that people who are facing the biggest burden are not the one who are paying the biggest price as well.
Earlier this week, a motion was brought forward to City Council to implement the charter. It was rejected by the majority ABC Vancouver Council.
The work that was prepared for us is something that we can use as one of many tools, but the fact is that we can't tell staff how to do their job.
But those who worked on it say the document is a loose framework that ensures reconciliation and equity play a meaningful role in policy decisions.
These are considerations that aren't often brought into City Hall decisions. That is going to be missed.
Klassen says the city already has a chief equity officer and an existing equity framework strategy. In the charter, the group asks for annual progress reports to hold the city accountable.
If you don't have roles for accountability and tracking, it's toothless, it's ineffective.
This all comes after a recent report from city planners showed there's a funding gap of about $230 million for the city to meet its climate targets. And the city is only 7% below 2007 emission rates.
What we need from the council right now are not steps back, but rather be more bold, be more visionary.
Klassen says creating an equitable climate emergency action plan is still top priority. Through infrastructure improvements and changes to new construction projects, he believes the city will be able to cut greenhouse emissions by 50% by 2030. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And staying on climate, the federal government has released its Sustainable Jobs Plan, one that was previously billed as giving oil and gas workers a just transition to greener jobs. But while the plan is still light on details, Julia Wong reports it's a rich target for critics.
The official opposition wasted no time blasting the federal government's Sustainable Jobs Plan.
Vladimir Putin is smiling today because as Justin Trudeau drives energy jobs out of Canada, he drives money into the hands of foreign polluting dictatorships.
The goal of the plan is to save jobs while preparing for a future with less demand for oil and gas and more demand for offshore wind power, solar energy, and critical minerals. The plan will create a central office to support workers and employers in transitioning industries, fund training programs for workers, and consult with industry, experts, Indigenous partners, and provincial and territorial governments.
That's a very strong start.
Environmental Defence Canada estimates the plan will need at least $15 billion every year.
This is really an investment in the future. It's going to lead to economic growth in key sectors, and it's going to lead to more resilient local economies if done well.
At least they did a find and replace on the words just transition.
The Alberta Premier has attacked the idea of a federal plan to move away from oil and gas and now suggests she won't support the plan as is.
I feel like the federal government, we've got their attention. They know we're angry. They know we're going to push back against them, and we will not allow this industry to shut down, but they've come nowhere near to meeting us halfway yet.
It's still a pretty high-level plan.
This climate policy expert says denying a coming shift could leave workers and communities worse off.
I think it's very clear that we are in a world that is undergoing an energy transition, right? And it's not really a choice at this point.
The Sustainable Jobs Plan is just that, a plan. The focus now to get provinces and territories behind it. Legislation is expected to be introduced before the summer. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
And here in Vancouver, one high school basketball team's hoop dreams have turned into a nightmare. The Kitsilano Secondary School junior boys basketball team had a great season, but had to forfeit. To break down the sports drama, we're joined by Liam Britton. Liam, what cost this team its season?
Well, sports drama is right. A rally was held today after BC School Sports ruled the team had an ineligible player transfer onto the team. And that led the Vancouver Secondary School Athletics Association to declare the team's record faulty after what had been a fantastic season. The ineligible player played throughout the season, and that means those games are forfeit and the team is out of the Vancouver playoffs. Kirsten Mikason is the mom of one player. She says her son and his teammates are devastated.
He said, I'm mad and sad, Mom. But as a mother, I could really also hear the defeat in his voice, and that was really hard to deal with.
And so, Liam, what makes this player ineligible?
Well, there are rules, very well-established rules across North American high school sports about athletes switching school. So in a nutshell, if a kid plays a sport for their old school 12 months before they switch schools, they can't play that sport for 12 months after they switch. So the idea of this is to disincentivize athletically motivated transfers. But the team's volunteer coach, Kenny McIntyre, says the inclusion of the player on this team was just an oversight.
We didn't recruit this kid. He moved to his catchment school. I didn't know him in October. He showed up in our gym. He plays on our team. He's not Michael Jordan. He's not Kobe Bryant. He's just a kid who lives in the neighborhood and wants to play basketball.
So it's really these kids who are paying the price, but who's responsible?
Well, parents and the athletes themselves are blaming administrators within the school district for this. They say the admins should have known about the ineligible player rules and not played this player. We asked the school board for comment, and they say they have to follow the rules, but wouldn't comment on staff issues. And as for the players themselves, they're understandably upset.
It feels horrible, not for me, but like the whole team. Like, this is like our passion. Like, we just love playing basketball, and like they just got rid of it for us.
And the timing couldn't be worse. Forfeiting means they've lost out on their shot to play in a province-wide best-on-best tournament. Michelle?
All right, thanks, Liam. That's our Liam Britton reporting live tonight. Frustrations over soaring price hikes for ingredients are mounting for many small businesses. In Vancouver, a number of bakeries have been vocal about just how expensive many items are becoming. As John Hernandez reports, inflation isn't solely to blame for rising costs.
The expenses across the board are up, so that means margins are shrinking.
Long lineups are a welcomed sight for Shauna McNeil.
Fortunately for us, our sales are good. They're steady, which means people continue to support our small business.
Each sale helps the owner at Trafic on Main Street keep their menu prices down, even though the cost of ingredients just keeps getting higher.
A block of butter a couple of years ago cost just under $200, and now it's up over $300.
They hope to hold off on price hikes through the rest of the year, a task that will prove challenging here and for many other bakeries like it.
We want to make sure that our customers are at least affected. We are riding out that storm.
Master pastry chef Thomas Haas has been keeping close tabs on his bills. He's even taken to social media to point out some of the glaring price increases that are much higher than Canada's inflation rate.
We have seen the increases not like what our government says, we have an inflation of 6%, but 20%, 25%, 30, 35, up to 71%. And it goes right through everything from chocolates to fruit.
Experts say the surging food prices can likely be traced to the major players in the supply chain.
And you have wholesalers and retailers and big food manufacturers, and it seems like they're all taking, maybe a bigger slice of the pie than they have in the past.
A trend that has these business owners calling for corporate transparency.
We want to see more of those big companies being responsible.
Corporations are having more and more power, and there is less and less corporations who are competing against each other.
Experts say reining in inflation likely won't bring prices down, but could keep suppliers from raising them even more. A move that could hopefully keep businesses and their customers from eating even more costs. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Families will soon have access to more midwives in BC. UBC has more than doubled the number of seats in its midwifery program thanks to new provincial funding.
The role of midwives really does go beyond the delivery, the pinnacle moment. It really is about the aftercare, and making sure that we are adjusting. Women and those giving birth are adjusting to the change in their lives.
The province announced $1.7 million for the expansion, which will see UBC add 20 new seats to the program, bringing the total capacity to 48 students a year. The midwife program also supports Indigenous students by incorporating cultural learning experiences and mentorship from Indigenous midwives and elders. A Hadzik woman is preparing for a birth in Bella Bella, an island off the central coast of BC. It will be the first time in more than 2 decades that a person has given birth in the remote community. Her family is thrilled about setting a precedent, but as Angela Starrett reports, some medical professionals were apprehensive.
Before her baby was even conceived, Ghoussoub knew she wanted to give birth in her Celtic community of Bella Bella.
It's really special to be out here on the land where my ancestors used to birth and to feel the energy.
She and her partner Stephen are getting ready for their first baby to be born at the Kunsut Wellness Center. It's on an island east of Bella Bella, about 15 minutes by boat.
Since I was a little girl, I was taught that our women would go into the Aglayache, into the forest, and they would birth their babies against old growth cedar so that their children would be rooted as deep as old growth cedar.
But not everyone shared her enthusiasm.
It was more in regards to fear and how, when it comes back down to it, nobody wanted our baby to be hurt or me to be hurt in the birthing process.
She says doctors discouraged her and pressed her to give birth at the hospital rather than at home.
On one prenatal appointment, told that I would be making the wrong decision for myself and for my unborn child, and that it was basically bad parenting.
So her grandmother, 80-year-old Margaret Brown, stepped in to support her.
I birthed all 6 of my children in Bella Bella.
The hesitancy comes with the reality that it will be the first birth in Bella Bella in 21 years.
Previously, there had been smaller maternity services in rural and remote communities, usually staffed by internationally trained nurse midwives or by GPs that had surgical training.
But many of them closed about 20 years ago.
But the consequence, again, for families was having to be evacuated. For pregnancy, that means that for that 6 weeks around your birth and the postpartum period, you have to leave your community and go and stay in an unfamiliar city, often being separated from your older children or from your partner.
It's something that can be traumatic for families, not just to leave their family behind, but to enter a space where Indigenous people don't always feel safe.
For Indigenous people who access health care, that so often they encounter racism.
Ghoussoub and her partner want to ensure their baby is brought into the world knowing who they are.
One thing that I always think about is about reclaiming a lot of the ways that have been taken away from us through colonization.
Being in the community means their baby will hear their Celtic language in utero. With only a handful of speakers left, the significance is not lost on her.
That's a right that was taken away from us through residential school, and I'm really blessed to have my gagam, my grandmother, who takes the time to teach me.
Ghoussoub is being supported by a team of 5 midwives and her doula.
As an Indigenous birth worker and mother, I believe so wholeheartedly in their inherent right to birth their baby where they choose to, and especially in their ancestral homelands and in their territory.
But right now, there's no payment structure for many rural and remote Indigenous communities to bring in midwives. In a statement, BC's Ministry of Health said it's currently piloting alternative midwifery contracts to address maternity provider shortages at several rural and remote sites, including Hazelton, Haida Gwaii, Invermere, Salt Spring Island, and Port Hardy, but not yet in Bella Bella.
And I have faith that it's going to happen. I have faith, and that's a big thing for me to say as an Indigenous person, to have faith in systems that have constantly failed me.
She hopes her birth in her own territory can set a precedent for other Indigenous parents.
I'm really just putting this story out to the world because I want it to be a good one, and believe that Canada and BC will find it in their hearts to break the cycle of disconnecting Indigenous people.
Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Bella Bella.
And an update for you now on the New Hawk Totem pole after it was removed from the Royal BC Museum earlier this week. It was the first step in the repatriation of the pole, which has left downtown Victoria and is on its way to Bella Coola by truck. Following 2 days of ceremony, the totem pole is being escorted back to New Hawk territory and is set to arrive on Monday. It was taken from a village on the Central Coast more than a century ago, and a celebration is planned for when the totem pole returns to its home territory. And senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, earlier in the show, we were talking about avalanche conditions. We just came out of that cold snap. What are you tracking?
Yeah, Michelle, I'm glad you brought that up right away because we are heading into a long weekend. We have fresh snow right across the province with more snow to come, attempting to get out there. But BC Avalanche officials saying check the forecast before you head out, with fresh storm snow continuing to layer onto that deeply buried weak layer. And I want to show you just one of the 3 systems I'm tracking, starting zoomed in on Metro Vancouver. I know we saw the sunshine earlier today. The showers quickly approaching from the northwest. In fact, they'll fill in any minute now out here in North Van. I'm just sort of waiting for those first raindrops to fall. This is the first of 3 systems, with the second one already hitting Haida Gwaii tonight. And you can really see that flow, that sort of onslaught of Pacific cloud and moisture coming in from the northwest. That's the direction that all the systems will take. We have snowfall warnings in place for Highway 97, Pine Pass, and Williston, where we could see 10 to 20 centimeters. It's more like a 5-centimeter story tonight and tomorrow morning for Prince George, Quesnel. But let me end off with the avalanche risk right now. And we are looking at most of the province under considerable, where we did see that golden avalanche, Michelle. So this is where we are seeing large avalanches being triggered with none of those usual warning signs. But I will break down the full weekend forecast a little bit later on in the show.
Okay, lots coming our way, and we will check back in with you, Joe. Thanks.
You're welcome.
The Scotties Tournament of Hearts opens tonight in Kamloops. Fans and competitors are ready to rock in what could be a historic competition, with Carrie Enerson hunting for her record-breaking 4th title.
Honestly, the level of teams that are here this year are very impressive. Got some young and upcoming teams. We've got a few veterans in the field, and honestly, we were looking at it, and there are the favorites, but there also could be the potential for some surprises, some upsets along the way.
If Enerson takes home the cup, she'll tie with Colleen Jones for the longest streak ever. The Team Canada skip's main challenger is Ontario's Rachel Homan, who's trying for her 4th title and first in 6 years. Up for grabs is $108,000 from a total prize purse of $300,000. And as always, the tournament winner secures a ticket to March's World Championships. The Tournament of Hearts runs from February 17th to the 26th. After 6 weeks of testimony, the inquiry into Ottawa's use of the Emergencies Act has released its report. We'll bring you the findings after the break. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, New Brunswick retirees are training to become lifeguards at their local aquatic center. The trio, who call themselves Grey Watch, just finished the Bronze Cross certification and say they did so because of the national shortage of lifeguard professionals.
Help! Help!
Well, what's happening here today is there are 3 of us are what you would call older people. We're going to be being tested for our Bronze Cross in an effort to become certified lifeguards.
You got him?
Yeah, we got him. Okay. It's pretty intense. Yeah. It really is. There are things that have pushed me, and I'm guessing pushed all of us this week to do things that we weren't sure if we could do.
Very challenging.
Well, I never dove underwater like I have in the last week, and retrieving 10-pound bricks and mannequins that probably weigh about 40 pounds and bringing them up and swimming 20 meters with it and holding it above water. It's like very difficult.
Help, here we go.
No, I retired when I was 58, and I'm 67 right now. And I started training for triathlons 4 years ago. I find coming here and training for this to dive down the deep end and is more intimidating than what I had to do in the St. Lawrence, as far as I'm concerned.
No breathing. I'm going to continue the compressions. 30.
You know, the sky's the limit. Your body, look after it, and you can do anything, you know, if you're lucky enough to have good health. You know, I've been lucky enough to have good health, right? Certainly this encourages, puts you down the path to living a healthy lifestyle, and you can live longer and enjoy your life more.
And I'm going to continue this cycle 5 times in 2 minutes. Get down. I have to keep doing like
To be honest, I didn't really want to at first. You know, I don't want the responsibility. You're retired. Now looking back on it, and I'm glad I did. It's a sense of accomplishment. Everybody likes a challenge. It is challenging at our age, my age, to do that. The main thing now I'm finding out is such a good team environment here. The other lifeguards, they look up to you and really support you, and you know you're not alone.
Lifeguard, and you see the lifeguards, they have their tubes tied up.
Everything that we're doing and have done and will have to do to pass this course is the same thing that any 15, 16, 18-year-old has to do. There's no favoritism for us whatsoever. We have to do what they've had to do as well. You're only as old as you feel. David Miles has a t-shirt. I'm getting old, but I'm not old yet.
Reaction is rolling in tonight to the final report out of the Emergencies Act inquiry. It says the federal government did meet the threshold for invoking the act last year as anti-vaccine mandate protests took hold. Rafi Bouchikanian takes us through the findings released today and the many lessons learned.
A year after the Emergencies Act was used to clear anti-vaccine mandate protesters from downtown Ottawa, Commissioner Paul Rouleau delivered his verdict on whether it was justified.
The very high threshold required for the invocation of the Act was met. Cabinet had reasonable grounds to believe that there existed a national emergency arising from threats to the security of Canada.
But Rouleau said he didn't reach that conclusion easily and acknowledged reasonable people could come to another one. The act gave police the power to compel tow trucks to move big rigs and freeze some protesters' bank accounts. In his report, Rouleau criticized how the whole protest was handled.
The response to the Freedom Convoy included a series of policing failures.
He chided Ottawa police for a lack of proper planning, no proper assessment of intelligence, fighting among themselves and other forces, and blamed Ontario's government for its lack of engagement in the crisis. The province says it did act, having earlier declared a provincial emergency. It also froze protester funds. Rouleau also took aim at the Prime Minister's decision to call some protesters a fringe minority, saying it likely inflamed the situation.
I wish I had said that differently. The fact is, there is a very small number of people in this country who deliberately spread misinformation and disinformation.
He also defended his government's decision to use the act.
We'd gotten to a place where there was no other choice to keep Canadians safe, we felt, than to do this.
But Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says this was an emergency the Prime Minister created.
I condemn anyone who behaves badly, breaks laws, or blockades critical
infrastructure, while standing on the side of the hardworking people who have suffered so much under 8 years of Justin Trudeau and were desperately trying to have their voices heard against an insulting and divisive Prime Minister.
Rouleau's report includes 56 recommendations, some about intelligence sharing and how police respond to protests. The lawyer representing downtown residents and businesses says he hopes police forces have learned a lesson.
I don't think we've really gotten a good apology from the Ottawa Police to the people of Ottawa. I don't think they ever really owned their mistakes.
That's the CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian. Now, staying on this final report on the Emergencies Act inquiry, BC Today's Michelle Elliott delved deeper into it earlier today with an expert who served on the Commission's Research Council. Associate Professor Jocelyn Stacey says at the time the Act was created, parliamentarians hoped it would never have to be used. And while the federal government met the threshold to invoke the Act, the decision doesn't represent an endorsement to use it again.
This was not at all an endorsement of the use of emergency powers, far from it. And so I think this is an important lesson for current and future governments, right? That they should expect to have the use of emergency powers really scrutinized very closely under this requirement of the Emergencies Act to have a public inquiry after the fact. So it's not just that this is happening after the fact, actually should have a preventative, forward-looking function, right? That future governments are keeping this in mind when they're contemplating future uses of emergency powers.
The Emergencies Act received royal assent in 1988, but wasn't put into action until last year.
There is no alternative but to defeat Goliath.
It's an annual security conference that gathers leaders from around the world, but Russia was left off the invite list. Coming up, we take you through the latest fallout over the invasion of Ukraine.
Dennis Hurley has been the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Durban for 36 years. He says people are better at spreading hate than love.
The barriers between one culture and another, one language and another, one people and another, one race and another. And God knows we of South Africa know that to the full, the bitterness of racial and national divisions.
The Archbishop has spoken out against apartheid, imprisonment of blacks, and torture in South Africa. In 1984, he was charged with making false statements concerning atrocities by the police in the African country of Namibia. He was later acquitted.
In my own country, possibly here, too, people say, that's not church work, that's politics. They're always telling us that in South Africa, as if politicians, and I wouldn't insult them to think this, as if politicians had no consciences whatsoever, and the task of evangelizing politicians was just impossible. Keep out of politics.
After the Archbishop's sermon, parishioners adopted a famine relief tune to express their concern for blacks in South Africa.
We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving.
Parishioners seemed to be moved by the sermon.
I believe that we should help everyone, and I certainly try to do that. And South Africa is one of many.
But we have so many problems here in our own country.
Our own country is very rich and very badly behaved.
People say the politicians know it all, that you must not talk politics in church. Where did our blessed Lord talk politics? Is in the temple.
You can't separate religion and politics. It's as simple as that.
I think the government does not want interference. I think this is they want to go ahead on their own way. They don't want interference, and they don't want to hear what might not be to their liking.
The Archbishop is in Canada for the next 2 weeks promoting social justice and Catholic projects in third world countries. Joni Marr, CBC News, Vancouver.
In Quebec, the man accused of crashing a bus into a Laval daycare will undergo a psychiatric evaluation to see if he's fit to stand trial. Pierre Saint-Amand is facing multiple charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder. And those charges stem from this crash last week, which left 2 kids dead and 6 more injured. The accused is set to make another court appearance next week after the evaluation. The Globe and Mail is reporting that China employed what it calls a sophisticated strategy to influence Canada's last federal election. The newspaper says it has based its story on secret and top secret documents from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. CBC News has not seen the documents, but the Globe report says the documents suggest that China had 2 aims: to ensure a minority Liberal government and to defeat certain Conservative candidates identified by China. It says China pressured its consulates to influence Chinese community members and associations within Canada, and donors were encouraged to provide campaign contributions to candidates favored by China. The Globe says the documents reveal China's former consul general in Vancouver boasted in 2021 about how she helped defeat 2 Conservative MPs. The Trudeau government set up a task force to monitor potential threats to the federal elections, but Trudeau told the Commons that the integrity of our elections was not compromised. 5 former police officers in Memphis, Tennessee have entered pleas of not guilty in the death of Tyre Nichols. Officers brutally beat Nichols after a traffic stop in Memphis on January 7th. As Chris Reyes tells us, he died days later.
It was an emotional day inside a Memphis courtroom this morning where 5 former police officers charged in connection with the death of Tyre Nichols made their first appearance. The 5 officers walked into the courtroom with their lawyers for their arraignment. They were read the charges that they're facing, including second-degree murder charges, kidnapping, assault, all entered a plea of not guilty. This is essentially the officers' first public appearance, but what makes this a really big deal is that this is also the first time that these officers are coming face-to-face with Tyre Nichols' family. Inside that courtroom, Nichols' mother. Have a listen to what she said about the experience.
I want each and every one of those police officers to be able to look me in the face. They haven't done that yet. They couldn't even do that today. They didn't even have the courage to look at me in my face.
Now that the officers have pled not guilty, this begins a very long process of getting this case to trial. The judge asked for patience. Lawyers on both sides will have to look through more evidence, more videos that have not been released to the public. There could be more charges coming, possibly for others who were there on that day, January 7, when Tyre Nichols was beaten. Members of the Memphis Police and Fire Department have been fired over this. The judge has set the next court date for May 1st. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
I have this skill that I can use to bring people joy.
What's your love language? In the latest episode of The Stubborn Baker, one cook expresses her love through food.
Just to be clear, you do think microorganisms pose a threat?
Oh, in the most dire terms.
Bacteria?
No.
You like saying no?
Yes.
Not bacteria, not viruses, so...
Fungus. Yes, that's the usual response. Fungi seem harmless enough. Many species know otherwise, because there are some fungi who seek not to kill, but to control.
Ever kill one?
Yeah.
Is it hard? Knowing they were people once?
HBO's The Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic story with an unusual villain, a fungal infection that turns people into zombies. Now, it might seem like a crazy premise, but the guys who designed the video game that the show is based on, they don't think it's so far-fetched.
We're feeding each other books and watching movies together and saying, like, have you seen this? What have you, check this out. And one of those things was the planet Earth BBC documentaries narrated by David Attenborough.
These bullet ants are showing some worrying symptoms. Spores from a parasitic fungus called cordyceps have infiltrated their bodies and their minds. Like something out of science fiction, the fruiting body of the cordyceps erupts from the ant's head.
So let's take on this question. Could a fungal pandemic actually sweep the planet, turning humanity into zombies?
I would say that that the show is very creative. In science, we never say that something is impossible, except, some violation of laws of physics.
So a good starting point is to look at the actual fungus from the show. Cordyceps are a pretty broad group. There are hundreds of types of them, many used in Chinese medicine. But it's Ophiocordyceps unilateralis that gets all the attention because of what it can do to ants.
Just the right amount of light, just the right amount of humidity for the parasite growing inside. It forces her to clamp down in a death bite, and Cordyceps reveals its gruesome nature.
This is the zombie fungus. It controls an ant's mind and body, compelling it to leave the safety of its nest in order to seek out the exact environmental conditions that the fungus needs to grow and to spread. Once there, it's mission complete.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
For Black History Month, we're showcasing the voices of 4 Black musicians, talking about the music they love and how it moves them. And each Saturday on CBC Radio 1, they're sharing their favorites on a show called Revelations. This week, we hear from Crystal Dos Santos on legacy, professional, and personal.
Yeah. I'm Crystal Dos Santos. I am a singer, actor, performer, creator. I am a part of the Revelations music series. My theme is legacy, and I'm really excited to share what that means to me. Legacy to me is bringing the history, but the interesting, sort of rich, beautiful, personal elements of history forward into the now and into the future. I want people to think of their own legacies, and I want them to realize and think deeper into what other people have created as well. Especially when it comes to Black history, I think it's really important to dive a little deeper and see where people really came from.
It would feel to be free.
One of my favorite songs is a song called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free by Nina Simone.
I wish I could live like I'm wanting to live. I wish I could do all the things that I can do.
There's a line in it that says, I wish you knew how it would feel to be me. Then you'd see and agree that everyone should be free. That's one of the most powerful lines I've ever heard in music. Missy D is a femc from Vancouver. She's a bilingual hip-hop artist, and she is, oh my goodness, so talented. The song that I chose is called Yes Mama.
Enter the room like he knows who we are. Follow me on Earth, Venus, up to Mars. See, I'm extraterrestrial. I'm a lavender, but also quietly so killer boss.
In legacy, I believe that our parents, particularly mothers, have a really important role to play in establishing you know, where we came from and our foundations. I want to leave my children with a lasting feeling and legacy of love and of confidence and acceptance and worth. And I really felt that this song was like a really wonderful way to celebrate my mama too.
We celebrating your wisdom, singing, yes, mama, yes, mama.
Oh, Viola Desmond. She has changed my life. So I almost want to come to tears about it.
Don't care if you're white or black on this train.
Hey Viola is a cabaret-style musical where it's kind of a conversational biography, and I play viola, and I'm supported by a three-piece band of extremely talented Vancouver musicians. And it's such a powerful story to tell that somebody who, you know, really looked like success could still be brought down because of the color of their skin.
Yes, this train has left the station. No Jim Crow, no discrimination on this train. Is bound for glory, this train. Is bound for glory, this train. Is bound for glory.
I hope that the people, the listeners who are tuning in, the Black people who I get to interact with and support in our community are feeling that they are hearing a part of themselves or feeling a part of their legacies in the music that I've chosen. And I hope that they feel like they have a community to belong to as well, even if it's just through a radio show where I've chosen a few pieces of music that I enjoy.
Through February, Revelations is special radio programming on the power, joy, and history of Black music. Episodes air 5 p.m. on Saturday nights on CBC Radio 1, and Crystal Dos Santos, who you met there, will host tomorrow. And senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast once again. Joe, it's Friday. We made it.
Mm-hmm. We did. We made it, and it's a long weekend for lots of people, and we got a lot of weather, Michelle. Basically something for everyone. So let me break it down, starting with the showers that have just moved into Metro Vancouver. Here's the radar. You can see the snow for higher elevations. Not looking to get that chunky rain / snow we saw at lower elevations about this time last night. Should remain showers for most of sea level, but those showers lingering through the overnight into tomorrow morning for Metro Vancouver. System after system, as I mentioned earlier, will bring fresh snow to all of our mountains and mountain passes. This is through to Tuesday, and you can see getting a good 60 to 80 centimeters in those purple bullseyes. And those systems are riding the jet stream into the northwest and then sliding down to the southeast, and the south coast kind of getting clipped with the shower end of things. But here's just a snapshot of Sunday. You can see all of that purple. That is snow, which will sort of get a fresh pulse as we head into Monday. And then that's the system that drags down what will be an Arctic air mass beginning Monday night in the northeast, and that will spread down across the province through Monday, really landing across the south coast for Tuesday. So I'll break that down in a moment. But for tomorrow, we are looking at temperatures above seasonal for places like Kelowna and Cranbrook. You should see some sun during the afternoon hours. Prince Rupert, you're getting that second round of rain as we speak. Look for some sun in the afternoon. Okay, check out these temperatures. Basically seasonal for tomorrow in Metro Vancouver. We've got morning showers. Those are the ones we're getting right now that will linger through the start of your weekend. We're hoping we see some sunny breaks on the back end of Saturday, and the next system actually doesn't arrive until Sunday afternoon. So there is this window of hopeful sunshine Saturday afternoon and a dry start to Sunday before those Sunday afternoon showers ramp up. Monday, going to be a bit of a washout for much of the day. It's Tuesday that we really start to feel that Arctic air move in. Look at those overnight lows. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, -7 Thursday night. The start of this Arctic air mass will be cold and clear. But Michelle, yes, that is an intentional question mark I put on Friday's forecast. We could be looking at a snow event for the end of next week. I'll be keeping my eye on that one very closely.
Okay, good to know the cold is coming. Prepare, stay warm. Thanks, Joe.
Prepare, stay warm. You're welcome.
In the second episode of our Creator Network series on The Stubborn Baker, we hear from Jessica Kruger, a quadriplegic baker who expresses love through cooking. Following Valentine's Day, she recounts her own love story and shares a couple cookie decorating tips for those making something special for their loves this weekend. Take a look.
Obviously, I show my love through baking, so in many ways, that's like my expression of love to people. Last year, I did chocolate chip cookie cakes in the shape of a heart. That was kind of like my main pre-order thing, and then decorated cookies. I like to do like little avocados that say, "You guac my world." Some dinosaurs that say, "You're dynamite." I feel like I actually have a pretty wide range. Like I've made some angry I'm single on Valentine's Day cakes in the past. On actual Valentine's Day, I'm pretty much always working. It's a big baking day. I would say when I first decided to start dating, I was definitely like really nervous about it. Being someone in a chair, I didn't know what the reaction was gonna be. You know, I had a few bad experiences before I got to the really good one. I had one person say like that they didn't want to meet me in public because they'd be embarrassed being seen with someone in a chair, which was kind of my worst nightmare coming to life. But expectation of what it means to be in a wheelchair is so far from the reality of it. And I think even Juan didn't necessarily know what it was going to mean. He was definitely nervous about it in the beginning. But once they kind of give me the opportunity to show them, they see that, you know, I go sit skiing and kayaking and play rugby and do all the things that able-bodied people can do just in my own way. And yeah, you just have to give me the chance to show you. Juan is my husband. It's my first year as him being my husband for Valentine's Day, so that feels weird to say. We had our first date at Granville Island. We went for brunch. He ordered his eggs Benedict with the eggs scrambled because he was so nervous. So that was a little bit weird, but also endearing. And yeah, it was a great first date. He's definitely got a calm to him that I don't have. So while I'm stressing about 5,000 things, he's the person to say, you know, take a breath. We don't need to panic about this, and kind of help bring me back down to earth. 2.5 years after we were dating, we went to Disneyland together. And that was where he proposed. I was completely shocked, like so shocked to the point that the first thing I said was like, "Are you serious? Is this a joke?" As he's down on one knee with a ring in front of me, I didn't even believe it. But yeah, obviously I said yes. And then we started planning our wedding. The pandemic hit, so we started postponing our wedding and ended up just getting married this last August. So I made my own wedding cake. A little bit overwhelming for sure. I thought I was gonna do it like well in advance. Lots of things coming up last minute. I kept like pushing the cake and the cookies off till closer to, and it ended up being like 3 days before the wedding that I was doing both. And, you know, 12-hour a day in the kitchen to try and get those things done, and 5,000 other things waiting at home to do when I got back. But it all came together in the end, and somehow it ended up going exactly as I was hoping it would. Now I have this skill that I can use to bring people joy, and I get to use it for friends and family as well as customers. And typically sleep is the thing that gets compromised in order to fit everything in. Usually it's if the choices are spend some time with Juan or get 8 hours of sleep, I'm always going to choose spending some time with Juan. I really cherish my relationships, and I never want to make anybody feel like they're not the most important person in my life. So yeah, and not having a lot of time means I'm also not the best about, you know, preparing a lunch. So when one just shows up out of the blue with food or to come rescue me from a long day, I definitely feel just really grateful and excited to see him. He does really enjoy a sweet treat. I think it's been dangerous to have me as his wife for sure. Oh, first try. I feel like for me, love is surrounding yourself with people that allow you to be exactly who you are and feel embraced for being that.
You bust a hole in the back already.
Today I'm going to show you how to do a feathering technique on your cookies. Now you're gonna take your skewer and you're gonna put it in the icing and pull straight down. I'm doing all of this fairly quickly because the icing starts to dry pretty fast. You can repeat this step for each of the polka dots and create hearts all over. Wishing you and all of your loved ones a very sweet Valentine's Day from the Stubborn Baker.
Meet Skeena and Pim, the two newest residents at the Vancouver Aquarium. We'll take you to their new home after the break.
It's a time for the ski community to gather and celebrate everything cross-country skiing.
Even with the warm weather, we have enough of a snow base that it's very good as long as they grew it before.
This is the location of the Barney Berkey event.
Way to go, you guys!
The Barney Berkey is an event for families. We have a 500-meter event, a 3-kilometer and a 1.5-kilometer course. It's a lot of magic going on with the Berkey Biner. A lot of exciting events. Out near Blackfoot, we're skiing 55 kilometers. We have the new Moon Berkeys and fantastic virtual Berkey, which attracts people across Canada and around the world. There's really something for everyone. We attract well over 1,000 skiers, so it's a party on skis.
James is our little baby. He's 2 years old, and he was the Berkey baby 2021. He's a 8th Norwegian, and so skiing's in his blood. So this medal was his great-great-grandma, Jenny Leon. She skied at the Lillehammer Birkebeiner many times, and so this is passed down. James is our little prince. So the prince, Håkon Håkonsson is the prince, and people were trying to end the line of the Norway realm.
The prince had to be moved to a different place because they were in Norway, they were fighting with each other. So 2 of the warriors had to carry the prince at an age of 2 across mountain pass, about 55 kilometers skiing. And that's where this legend came from, that we have to recreate the same distance, and that's why we're supposed to have the pack here. The more people come out to enjoy it, and I guess with COVID, we all realize we have to be more outside, and hopefully more people decided to come out and enjoy the skiing. And if you have nice ski trails in the city and outside the city, I mean, the better for all of us.
We leave you tonight with an update on 2 harbor seals, both rescued from the wild this fall and now settling in at the Vancouver Aquarium. This is Skeena. The aquarium says she was found in August in South Surrey, swimming frantically in the Serpentine River. She was suffering from severe eye injuries that required intensive care. And her new roommate, Pim, was found in Sook in September, dehydrated and with multiple wounds on her body.
And they are starting to get used to their new environment. They are both fully blind, one is partially blind, so they're really reliant on their vibrissae or their mustache to kind of feel vibrations in the water and discover their new habitat by just skimming along the walls. So it's been a really fun time kind of introducing them to new toys and their new environment.
The Vancouver Aquarium says due to the severity of their injuries, the seals have been deemed non-releasable by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which means the aquarium is their new forever home. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC News at 6. We just want to remind you, if you're not already watching us on CBC Gem, that is our free app. You can check it out. Zara Premji will have your late news at 11. Good night.